Hello, man of word, we truly appreciate that you joined us. We are glad that we can support you in your further development. Today's topic is about 5 lessons that everyone should learn from the book Dare to Lead, written by Brene Brown. So, let's begin. Welcome to amanoford.com, the most refreshing network in the business world. Why should you pay close attention to this? 1. You will learn that without vulnerability there is no creativity or innovation. 2. You will learn that vulnerability is the foundation of courage building. And 3. You will learn how to choose your squad. This short video has the purpose to make you aware of the next fact: you can't get to courage without embracing the suck. The main topics of our video are: does vulnerability mean weakness? How to choose your squad? Myths about vulnerability: to feel is to be vulnerable? And does trust come before vulnerability? So, let's dive in. Lesson 1. Does vulnerability mean weakness? In this book is written that we've asked thousands of people to describe vulnerability to us over the years, and these are a few of the answers that directly pierce the emotion. The first date after my divorce. Talking about race with my team. Trying to get pregnant after my second miscarriage. Starting my own business, watching my child leave for college. Apologizing to a colleague about how I spoke to him in a meeting. Sending my son to orchestra practice knowing how badly he wants to make first chair and knowing there's a really good chance he will not make the orchestra at all. Waiting for the doctor to call back. Giving feedback. Getting feedback. Getting fired. Firing someone. Across all of our data, there's not a shred of empirical evidence that vulnerability is weakness. Are vulnerable experiences easy? No. Can they make us feel anxious and uncertain? Yes. Do they make us want to self-protect? Always. Does showing up for these experiences with a whole heart and no armor require courage? Absolutely. Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. Can you give me a single example of courage that you've witnessed or experienced in your own life that did not require experiencing vulnerability? I've asked that question now a couple of hundred times in meeting rooms across the globe. I've asked fighter pilots and software engineers, teachers and accountants, CIA agents and CEOs, clergy and professional athletes, artists and activists, and not one person has been able to give me an example of courage without vulnerability. The weakness myth simply crumbles under the weight of the data and people's lived experiences of courage. Lesson 2. How to choose your squad. In this book is written that if you need a rubric for choosing the people, here's the best I have. The people on your list should be the people who love you not despite your vulnerability and imperfections, but because of them. The people on your list should not be yes people. This is not the suck-up squad. They should be people who respect you enough to rumble with the vulnerability of saying I think you were out of your integrity in that situation, and you need to clean it up and apologize. I'll be here to support you through that. Or yes, that was a huge setback, but you were brave and I'll dust you off and cheer you on when you go back into the arena. Lesson 3. Myths about vulnerability. Myth 1. I don't do vulnerability. In this book is written that our daily lives are defined by experiences of uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. There is no opting out, but there are 2 options: you can do vulnerability, or it can do you. Choosing to own our vulnerability and do it consciously means learning how to rumble with this emotion and understand how it drives our thinking and behavior so we can stay aligned with our values and live in our integrity. Pretending that we don't do vulnerability means letting fear drive our thinking and behavior without our input or even awareness, which almost always leads to acting out or shutting down. Myth 2. I can do it alone. In this book is written that one line of defense that I encounter is I don't need to be vulnerable because I don't need anyone. I'm with you. Some days I wish it were true. The problem, however, is that needing no one pushes against everything we know about human neurobiology. We are hardwired for connection. From our mirror neurons to language, we are a social species. In the absence of authentic connection, we suffer. And by authentic I mean the kind of connection that doesn't require hustling for acceptance and changing who we are to fit in. Lesson 4. To feel is to be vulnerable. In this book is written that, for those of us who were raised with a healthy, or unhealthy, dose of suck it up and get her done, rumbling with vulnerability is a challenge. The myths I outlined above work together to lead us to believe that vulnerability is the gooey center of the hard emotions that we work full-time to avoid feeling, much less discussing, even when our avoidance causes us and the people around us pain. Emotions like fear, shame, grief, disappointment, and sadness. But vulnerability isn't just the center of hard emotions, it's the core of all emotions. To feel is to be vulnerable. Believing that vulnerability is weakness is believing that feeling is weakness. And, like it or not, we are emotional beings. What most of us fail to understand, and what took me a decade of research to learn, is that vulnerability is the cradle of the emotions and experiences that we crave. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, and joy. We know that vulnerability is the cornerstone of courage building, but we often fail to realize that without vulnerability there is no creativity or innovation. Why? Because there is nothing more uncertain than the creative process, and there is absolutely no innovation without failure. Show me a culture in which vulnerability is framed as weakness, and I'll show you a culture struggling to come up with fresh ideas and new perspectives. Lesson 5. Does trust come before vulnerability? In this book is written that, when my daughter, Ellen, was in 3rd grade, she came home from school one day, closed the door behind her, looked at me, and then literally slid down the front door, buried her face in her hands and started sobbing. My response of course was, "Oh my God, Ellen, are you okay? What happened?" Something really embarrassing happened at school today, and I shared it with my friends and they promised not to tell anyone, but by the time we got back to class, everyone in my whole class knew. I told Ellen, we trust the people who have earned marbles over time in our life. Whenever someone supports you, or is kind to you, or sticks up for you, or honors what you share with them as private, you put marbles in the jar. When people are mean, or disrespectful, or share your secrets, marbles come out. We look for the people who, over time, put marbles in, and in, and in, until you look up one day and they're holding a full jar. Those are the folks you can tell your secrets to. Those are the folks you trust with information that's important to you. It turns out that trust is in fact earned in the smallest of moments. It is earned not through heroic deeds, or even highly visible actions, but through paying attention, listening, and gestures of genuine care and connection. We need to trust to be vulnerable, and we need to be vulnerable to build trust. What are the best things to remember from this? 1. Vulnerability is not a weakness. 2. Without vulnerability there is no creativity or innovation. And 3. Vulnerability is the foundation of courage building. Well, our list ends here. Let us know in the comments section what are your thoughts about our list. Thank you for watching until the end, and if you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell button to be notified for every new learning opportunity. And always remember, man of word, be aware of the person that you can become.